Still today, there are many war crimes and stories which are being uncovered about the Second World War. On a daily basis, different soldiers are being exhumed from the battlefields of Europe, 80 years after the conflict had gripped the continent. But many resistance elements emerged during World War II, as the Germans captured different lands and territories, and the people living in those countries did not want to tolerate the evils of the Nazis. But it has emerged recently that there are executions that were carried out by the French resistance, which still haven't been spoken about, and many of those who fought for the French resistance took their secrets of the war to their deaths. But recently a 98-year-old surviving member of the resistance spoke out and told of the executions of up to 40 German soldiers who were executed by the French resistance following D-Day. But what is the story of this? Join us today as we look at this, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. In the build-up to D-Day, the British and Allied nations were planting spies inside of France to work with the French resistance. They would play a key role in the Normandy landings, disrupting and delaying the Germans, who would make their way to the north of France following the landings. But the French resistance were known to have been a brutal foe for the Nazis, and they were a feared enemy. If members of the resistance were discovered, they were usually executed quickly and swiftly by the Germans, with very little questions asked. Some were sent to concentration camps where they were then killed by the conditions there. They did play a key role in the rapid advance for the Allies through France following D-Day. There had been activity inside of France for many years, even as soon as the Germans occupied the country. There were many hardline policies taken by the Nazis against the resistance, and different elements such as the Maquis went to live and take up arms in the mountains and forests. These men were difficult for the Germans to hunt down, and 1944 in particular was a key year for the resistance. But one man who was a member of the French resistance was Edmond Reviel. He was a man who had lived with a secret for decades, and at a meeting of the National Veterans Association in 2019, he stood on his feet and spoke to the other veterans about a mass execution of German soldiers that he had witnessed and been a part of. It was said that when he spoke, it was like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders, and the mayor said, over the years he had plenty of opportunities to tell the story and never did, but he was the last witness. It was a burden to him. He knew that if he did not speak out, then no one would ever know. What this elderly Frenchman was talking about was the executions of around 40 German soldiers that had taken place at the hands of the French resistance. Following D-Day on the 6th of June 1944, resistance fighters had staged a small uprising in Tulle, the capital of the Creuse department, and during this between 50 and 60 German soldiers were taken prisoner by the resistance fighters. 3 days after D-Day, the Germans fought back. They then publicly hanged and executed 99 of their own hostages. In the days following D-Day, more horror would occur as the Germans would discover the charred remains of Helmuth Kämpfer, an SS commander who had been locked inside of a field ambulance, and this had been set on fire. Following this, the SS Das Reich division massacred 643 people inside the village of Orada-sur-Glane. Women and children were locked in the church, which was then set on fire, and men were locked in the barn and were shot by machine gun fire, before the barn was then torched. The village became a ghost town, and it still stands today as a memorial, but Edmond Reviel had taken part in the Tulle uprising, and then he joined a party of resistance members that went towards the east. He said none of the resistance groups wanted anything to do with the prisoners they had taken. We didn't know what to do with them. So these men accompanied the German prisoners they had captured. They then took them to Meymac. Some of the prisoners had become separated from the main group, and it was said if a prisoner wanted to take a pee, he needed to be guarded by 2 others. We hadn't planned anything for food. We were under the orders of an Allied command centre, and they were the ones who gave us the order to kill them. Edmond Reviel is today the last surviving member of the local resistance group of the FTP, and he would then personally witness the executions of up to 40 German soldiers at a place referred to as Vert. Amongst the inmates and the prisoners were other members of the Wehrmacht, but also other collaborators, including a French woman who had collaborated with the Gestapo. But after receiving the order to kill them, the resistance members did not want to shoot her, and they drew straws, and the loser had to shoot her. The commander of this group who was guarding the soldiers was codenamed Hannibal, and it was said he cried like a kid when he got the order, but there was discipline in the resistance. He asked for volunteers to carry out the order. Every fighter had someone to kill, but there were some of us, and I was one of them, recounted Reveille, who would not take part. Reveille then told what happened with the executions. In the countryside, he said, it was a terribly hot day. We made them dig their own graves. They were killed and we poured quicklime on them. I remember it smelled of blood. We never spoke again. For over 75 years, this secret would remain close with the witness, and it's clear that it must have played on his mind that if he didn't get it off his chest, then it would have gone with him to the grave. The rest of the executioners who massacred the dozens of soldiers had died, but this would not be the end of the story. It was believed that in the 1960s, a group of archaeologists uncovered the remains of 11 German bodies from Vert. But then the excavations came to a close, and there were no records stating the exact place of the dig. This was done in complete secrecy, and a local man remembered seeing the excavations and discoveries, and he has now collaborated with modern archaeologists today. This is because in the next few weeks the German War Graves Commission are going to be searching for the remains of the missing German soldiers who were executed. The 98-year-old resistance member's testimony has also been used to try and pinpoint where these people's remains are. There has been a lot of discussion in the media regarding the search for the remains of the executed German soldiers and collaborators. The thought by Reveille, the 98-year-old man, is that he wants these dead soldiers to be remembered and for their stories to be told to the families, so that a memorial can be placed near to the spot. But there are many other atrocities and war crimes that were committed by the French resistance, but also there are war crimes that have been committed by German soldiers. Many of these still today have not been uncovered, and the victims remain in their graves under the ground. Still around Europe there are huge mass graves of victims who were executed by the Einsatzgruppen, or were killed inside of the concentration camps. Many of these people have been exhumed and laid to rest inside a proper burial site. There are also some unknown German soldiers who had even been buried inside of Britain, who died in prisoner of war camps here. But whether the 40 German soldiers who were executed at Vert can be found, or have been found, is yet to be known. It's believed that 11 were exhumed, but that leaves around 30 to be discovered. But the testimony of a 98-year-old man has brought the executions of the Second World War into the forefront of the world's mind and consciousness, decades on from the end of the deadliest conflict in history. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. And once again, thank you so much for watching.